Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Finally, it finally dropped. The tiling toolpath design and toolpathing video finally dropped this morning. But as you can see behind me, the project is not cut yet. Lots of stuff going on. We'll get into that more in just a minute. Before I get going too far, I wanted to say howdy and thank you once again to my friend Steve over at Harneal Media. Steve is the man, the myth, the legend, my only moderator, kind of running, ramrodding this outfit from behind the scenes. And if you're thinking about developing or increasing a web presence, there's no better way to do it than with a website, with a web store. And Harneal Media is the only place I will ever recommend. Steve does a bang up job, very competitively priced, and it's 100% personalized service. When you work with Steve, you are working with Steve, not some nameless, faceless person in a call center who you'll never talk to again. 100% of the time you deal with Steve. So check him out. There's a link to Harneal Media in every video on my channel. I'm proud to call him a friend, and I'm proud to say he's the sponsor of Mark Lindsay CNC.com. Man, it is one heck of a day. Pablo Santa, howdy neighbor. I'm about 30 miles south of you. You know where that is. Today's video. Yeah. It was a lot of fun to make, and the project is going to be even better. It's going to be even more fun. I just have to get the time to actually stop and do it. We were out of town Friday and came back to discover we have guests from out of town coming this afternoon. So yesterday and this morning has been spent preparing for that. And my lean-to shed finally gets built and installed this coming Friday. So this may sit on the back burner for a little bit. So it may be a couple of weeks before I can get to it. But rest assured, it is coming. Russell Faraday's comment was, this one was a bit odd for me. I've done some tiling, but did not know there's a button for it. That just begs the question, how did you get your tiles to line up? Simply because, wow, if you weren't using Toolpath tiling, how did you get everything to line up? That's impressive. Very impressive, Russell. Of course, if you've seen any of Russell's work in any of the Facebook groups, stuff like that, you know he does impressive stuff anyway, so shouldn't be a surprise. The first question I'm going to get to is came in from Steve over at Harneal Media, as a matter of fact, this morning in a comment. And he was asking, let me go ahead and share my screen here real quick. We'll get over here into Aspire. And he was asking specifically about the alignment pinholes over here in the sled that I'm building. And he said, would it not make sense to have two alignment pins to keep the piece straight and not use that single pin as a pivot point? And that is something that I didn't think about mentioning, but it is a good point. I didn't think about mentioning it in this video. I was going to point it out in the next video, but your point is well taken, Steve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my other camera, and here is the sled I'm going to be using, and here is my piece of work material. Now, my plan is to line up this sled along the bottom edge of my spoil board and shoved up against these two dowel pins over here. on that are ostensibly used for a work offset. I will not be using a work offset on this. I'll just be running the straight G54 offset. So this will be attached here. Then when I get it cut down to size, my piece of work material will be attached to that sled, aligning on these pins as well. And it'll be fastened down with, as I said before, either tape and CA glue or with double-sided tape. I'm not sure which yet. And when I drill, let me move this out of the way. When I drill that alignment pinhole, it's going to come over 3 inches up about right here. And this is where it's going to drill that alignment pinhole right here. And then the next one will be drilled further up. Then I will run the first tile, which will do the bottom half here, take the screws out, slide it down this way so that everything is aligned against these 2 pins. And then when the hole that I bored up here aligns with this, I'll drop the pin in, fasten it all down, and then cut the second tile. Now, these pins will come out while it's cutting because they do stand proud of the work material, and I'd hate like heck to run a bit into one of those pins. But using these alignment pins right here and then screwing down this sled, it can't pivot on that pin. So I was going to go further in depth in that in the next video, but thanks for asking the question and giving me the opportunity to go ahead and clear it up now. So let's see. Let's see here. Russell Faraday said, I didn't mean it was good work, just that I'm stupid to look for an easy way. But no, you're not. No, you're not. That's one of the problems that we have with CAD CAM software. And one of the reasons why a lot of people say that one brand is next, one brand is better than the other, one is easier than the other. The problem is we have so many options. It's impossible to know every single one of them. I don't think anybody knows every single option in the software. Nobody you'd want to talk to anyway knows every single option in the software. But, that's why we learn from one another. And that's why I do these. And that's why you guys teach me also all the time. So, see, Russell says, hold the overhanging timber up to the same height as the bed. Yes, I have a roller stand that I'm going to do that with, and I will talk about that in the next video when I actually machine the project. Speaking of the project, let me go back to the picture because it was only after I was editing the closed caption for it that I realized I never mentioned what this project is. It's a growth chart, as you can see, and my wife and I are at that age where we don't have young kids. Our kids are grown and gone. They have kids. Their kids are grown and gone. So we don't have any kids here for a growth chart. What I do have, however, is a wife who has flower beds and has a garden. So this is a growth chart for her garden. It could either be mounted on the fence or it can be leaned up against the fence and moved around and everything, just so she can measure the height of her flowers. And she's got some out there that are about 4, getting close to 5 feet tall as it is. Hence the phrase, how big are your bloomers? I figured the right people will get it. She thought it was cute, so that's what we're going to do. It's a growth chart for her garden, an outdoor project, which is why I'm cutting it on a cedar fence board. So that's what the project is. And I forgot to mention that in the video. So I'm sure some of you were scratching your head going, what the heck is he doing? Okay, let's get to some of the questions that you have asked. Let's see. Norm Peterson wants to know, my machine is in an enclosure open to the front. Is there a way to tile one half, turn the project around, and tile the other half 180 from the first half? I'm not going to say no, because I'm sure somebody has figured it out. I don't know what that way is. And you're not the first person to ask that, Norm. There have been a couple of people who have asked me that, basically because they're in the same situation. Their machine is up against a wall, or they're working with an enclosure. If there is a way to successfully do what you're asking, I don't know what that way is. Now, again, that's not to say that it can't be done. I'm sure somebody a lot smarter than me has come across it, you know. But that's just what can I say? So, Russell Faraday says, not a double-sided project. No, 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 not this time. That never say never, though. So, if anybody has any questions on this morning's video or any other video or anything else in general, by all means, put them in the chat. That's what makes this fun. We have a couple others here. You guys are doing real well at keeping me going. One that's real easy to answer. I'll get to this one first. Joshua wants to know, have you tried the Shaper Origin? No, I have not. I've never been in the same room with one, to my knowledge. I think they look cool. I just don't know anything about them. I know one person who has one, but he lives many, many hours away from me, and I've never been to his shop. So, no, I've never used one. From what I understand, a lot of people like them for, well, various reasons, but it's it's just a little bit too pricey for what I do. I really don't have a need for one. So, sorry. Let's see here. Jay Heyman says, hello from rainy Minneapolis. Howdy, Jay. Question about Mach 4 and work offsets. In Mach 4, is there a way to name the offset instead of just knowing the numbers? I create plaques of different sizes and would like to have each offset named for the different plaques. Thank you. Let me pull up Mach 4 here and show everybody else what we're talking about. We're talking about over here from the main screen. We're talking about over here in work offsets. Oh, come on. There we go. The short answer is not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. They are standardized with the machine commands, with the G code language that's going to tell it where to go, where each offset is. So if you go changing this, I mean, I'm sure there probably is a way to get in here and change the name on the display, but I don't know if that's going to affect the G code in any way. So as it sits right now, no, I'm not aware of any way of getting in here and renaming these work offsets. I think that would cause more problems than it would solve. So, you know, what can I say? It's just going to be a case of take copious notes. And I mean, and think of it this way. You have a CNC router, you could make yourself a little sign chart with that and put it next to your monitor so that you could look, okay, I want to go into G57, and then click over to your offsets and go G57. So, I mean, what can I say? So, let's see here. Yeah, I don't think that's possible. So, let's see here. Let's get back over into some more questions. All right. Michael McCrite says, using VCarve desktop limited to 25 inches. I have 4-foot wide X on the Gatton CNC. How would you suggest tiling without moving the material? Maybe by resetting the X0. That would be a mistake to do it that way, to not reset the X0. Now, and that's something I'm going to go into in the next video. Once you set your XY0, you do not touch it. You don't change it. Even after you've moved your material, the software has already taken all that into consideration. So if you reset your XY0, it's going to throw everything off. So by however big your tile is. Once you set your XY0 as you're cutting your first tile, it doesn't change. Now, I know that VCarve Desktop does offer tiling. How it works in desktop, I'm not sure. I don't know if it will let you put in, let's say, 4 foot by 2 foot, 4 foot wide in X by 2 foot tall in Y. I don't know if it'll let you enter that full size, draw out that project, then tile the two. I'm not certain how it works in VCarve Desktop. I have VCarve Pro and I have Aspire. I would suggest trying that. I would suggest go ahead and enter the full size of your project and see if it will let you tile the full project. If it won't, then that may be an excuse to upgrade to VCarve Pro. But I know on their comparison page for VCarve Desktop, it does say you can tile. So let's say here what we have. Okay, Michael said I meant without moving the material. That's what I mean. I don't know. I don't know if it'll allow you to do that without moving the material. Now, Machined in Wood is suggesting do the first half, copy the file, and change the X offset to where the first tile ended. Yeah, that's something a little bit different there, and I wouldn't know how to even begin that. But I really don't know if I know what you're talking about. So you have a 4-foot wide piece. Will it let you tile one here, then here without moving the material? I don't know. I really don't know if it'll allow you to do that. Try it. That's about all I can say. Give it a shot. Come up with something. What I did to test tiling was I got an old fence board and put it down on the spoil board. And in my software, I just drew a diagonal line and then went to VCarve. Just set it to VCarve that line and tested it. And so, it was just a piece of scrap material that could actually go back up on the fence should I decide I want to. And then go for the gusto there. So, but the reason I tested it was because it was a piece of scrap material, and you could do something similar. Try your full-size design on a piece of scrap or just a test piece. Just draw a vector and see if it'll let you do that. A single line with V-bit, do a profile toolpath cutting on the vector and see if it'll tile both and allow you to do that without moving the material. I really don't know. I don't think so, because in tiling, it anticipates that you are going to be moving the material. So if you don't move the material, it's going to carve the second half of that pattern where you've carved the first half, So you might be able to get in and do an offset, but that would be trial and error. And as I say, try on some scrap material and see if it'll work for you. I don't know. There are several reasons to go ahead and get into VCarve Pro. This being one of them. You're not limited on you have unlimited size in VCarve Pro, but it also gives you gadget support and a few other things as well. So let's see here. Let me go into a couple of other, let's see, we had a couple of other questions. Okay, I thought maybe we had a couple of all right, let's jump back over here to the questions. I have set it directly aside here. Leo Steger says, I always add a comment line in every program, G-code he's talking about, G-code file, that tells which offset to use along with the size of the material. Okay. The G-code from Aspire, I believe, and from VCarve, I believe it already tells you the size of the material. But yes, you could add a comment line in your G-code to tell you which to use, which offset to use. Let's see here. Getting back to that work offset thing, Martin Pearson, does Mach 4 have multiple G59 offsets the same as Mach 3? If it does, you could edit those and add a title. Let's go back over here to Mach, and I'll share again. And over here in Mach, it does. You go to your full fixture table over here, and it is run, this fixture table is run off of G54. You have G54 through G59. Then you have G54.1P1. So there are your multiple offsets, and this goes down to P100. Okay. Now I'm in G54. Let me quit this. Let me go to G55. Yeah, I have to enable the machine, and I think I'm going to have to home the machine. No, it won't either. Okay. No, it's just G54 that applies the other offsets. Now let me look at the fixture table, and again, you cannot rename them. Okay. Now, let me see who that was that said it. I believe it was Brooks. Said, yes, I was thinking of it a little differently by editing the GUI to add another column for your label. That may be possible. I don't know if editing the GUI, you would have to, I don't know if you would have to, I don't know if that would affect the G code or not. I don't think it would if you made sure that that was a comment line in the G code. It shouldn't affect the G code at all if it's just in the GUI. So let's see. Let's get in here and see what else we have. See, Ray Dixon says, I don't understand why the offset is important when tiling. Um, he added a little bit later on. And I'm not really sure what you mean by that, Ray. The only offset I used on this, in fact, I didn't use any offset. Um, the only offset that is important to me during this entire project is my work offset in Mach 4. Now, Mach 4, Mach 3, all of them basically, when you fire up your machine, you home it and everything else, the minute you turn on your controller software, its default is G54. I think, I may be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all controller softwares immediately default to G54. And I never set a work location or a fixture offset for G54. I want that to be flexible so I can put a piece of material anywhere on the table and in G54 come over, set my XYZ0 and start cutting from that location. So I never used a work offset in this project, and I won't use a work offset. I'll be using the standard G54 default that Mach 4 starts in. So if I misunderstood, then please clarify. But that's also, you know, that's just for ease, for my convenience. Because if there was a way I can mess something up, I will, by God, do it. Murphy lives here, so let's see here. IL Peleg says, I'm not sure this is considered tiling, but if you want the same job in multiple locations on the stock, you can either cut and move the X, Y, and I assume Z0 to the new position. Yes. Also, basically, this is exactly what WCSs are for. G-code sender has the ability to pattern the same job to multiple locations based on fixed offset. So you can, for example, carve 2x4 grid of the same job. V-carve and Aspire both have the same thing. They, let me get up. In fact, I did a video on it in reference to 3D carving. And I just made, no, I didn't make that mistake. Let me go back over here, share screen, and boom. Over here in the Toolpath tab, I've got all my Toolpaths, got them selected. Then I can come up here and I got to find it, array copy the Toolpath. So, for instance, I could set up 4 or 5 fence boards on my table, on my CNC table. And then by array copying the toolpaths, I can tell it how many rows in Y, which would be 1 row in Y. And let's say I have 5 pieces of material. I would just either set an offset or I would set a gap. And then I could array copy those toolpaths so that it would do multiple copies of the same thing. I did do a video on this. Let me, it was for a 3D carve. I did the array copy. Array toolpaths. And I will post a link to it as soon as we're finished here. But you can do that in vCarve and Aspire. Okay. Close. And also there are macros for Mach 3 and Mach 4 that will do the same thing. If you want to you draw one design and you want to create several copies of that on one large piece of stock, there are macros within the controller software that will do it as well. So let's see here. Extreme Workers says, I've always wondered if it was possible to specify what fixture offset to use in VCarve Pro. Not within VCarve Pro. You would have to open up your G-code file, and most G-code files will open in Notepad or Notepad++. Notepad++ has a lot more options, and it's a little bit better program. But all Windows computers come with Notepad, and most G-code files will open in Notepad. And you could go up to the top of that G-code, and within the comments there, you could enter what fixture offset to use. Anything in parentheses, at least for Mach 4, I can't speak to any other controller software, but anything in parentheses is a comment, and the controller is going to ignore that. It's not going to read that as a command. So you could create your own line in parentheses, say, use G57 fixture offset, and it would be right there in your G code. So, yes, Al, you are 100% correct. I think the word tiling is used here in two different meanings. Tiling has one meaning. One for being able to carve a job larger than the work area of the machine. That's the meaning. The machine carve a job larger than the work area of the machine or larger than the piece of material. Okay. Okay. So the second for running the same job in a pattern, that is not tiling. That's not tiling. That's an array copy. That's an array. They're two different things. Okay. I was not referring to making a comment, but bypass the need to manually set the fixture offset. That's going to depend on your controller software. Now, that may be able to be built into a post processor in which you'd have to go enter it. But you could shoot a message to, in fact, Machine Does Wood is mentioning here. I think you can make custom post processors that would add the actual GX command, make one for each offset. Yes, you could probably do that. I don't monkey around with post processors. Let's see. Michael McCrite says, I believe VCarve inserts VCarve comments in the G code. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Brooks Martin says, maybe if you use the project worksheet, you could put it in using HTML language. Yeah, you could, but this is just me talking here. This sounds like an awful lot of work for something that you could write down on a piece of paper, use G57 offset, take outside when you take out your thumb drive with the G code on it. You know, and again, you could you have a CNC router. This would be an excellent project to put up to hang next to your monitor. You know, G56, this size plaque. G57, this size plaque. G58, this size plaque. That way it's right there. Not only that, it looks good. It looks cool. You know, what the heck? Okay. Ray Dixon says, the offset I was talking about was in your tile 1. The other day when you went through where the top of tile 1 meant tile 2, there was an offset. Okay. Actually, it's an overlap. And this is where we're getting into, I know it sounds, like we're talking semantics here, but I am that guy. I'm a word nerd, and words mean things. Okay. So let's go into, come on, there we go. Let's go into the tile toolpaths. Tile toolpaths, bring in my manager here. And we have here, and I cannot make this bigger, that is a tile overlap. Okay. I have mine set for 1/4 of an inch. I believe this is the offset you're talking about. Okay. It's an overlap. And that's why I didn't know what offset you were talking about. The reason for this overlap, let me get in here and I'll show you. I have this rectangle that I want to V-carve out that sits right on this dividing line. Okay. So if I don't overlap, what's going to happen is this V-bit's going to come up and make my square corner like it's supposed to. Then it's going to come to right here and it's going to stop. That's going to leave a radius right here where that V-bit stopped. Okay. Then when this tile up here cuts, that bit's going to come over and then stop right here where it's supposed to. It's going to come over and go up this way. So that's going to leave me a radius up here and a radius down here that I'm going to have to go in and clean up with the chisel because it won't be carved. So by setting an overlap, I have it here at 1/4 of an inch. By setting an overlap, update tiles, boom. By setting this overlap, when it's cutting this part down here, it's also going to cut past the distance of this overlap and cut this entire thing out. Okay? That's the reason that I did the overlap, was just so it would cut this out completely as part of tile 1. Does that make sense, Ray? Now, in fact, what I should do is I should probably go a little bit further than that. So let's go 3/8 of an inch. Let's go 375, and we'll update the tiles so that now I'm sure it's going to come all the way up here and give me a square corner. Okay. So again, if let me undo and hide the manager. Excuse me. Again, if I don't have it overlap beyond this area, when it goes to V-carve out this rectangle, it's going to come up to my dividing line and stop and then head back this way. And that's going to leave uncut regions out here. I want it to go beyond this and then go ahead and carve out the entire thing. Now, if you happen to be lucky enough to where you don't have anything right there on that tiling divided line, let me bring that back. Yeah, whoops, wrong one. Close. Come on, Mark. Know your icons. If you don't happen to have anything down here, then you don't need it. And in fact, if you're confident, I would just use it if you have anything down here that's going to be cut. And this is especially true when you're talking about 3D, because if let's say I had a dish going here, I don't want a dividing line going across that dish that I'm going to have to go in and try to clean up. So that's the reason for the overlap there. So let me uncheck that. Let's see here. Let's get to another question. Dwayne says, so your overlap needs to be the radius of the bit you're using at a minimum. For the most part, yes. Personally, I kind of would take it. I would take it a little bit further than that, just to make sure that you don't leave a radius or any cusping there, especially if you're using a ball nose. Because if that ball nose, the center of that bit gets right up there on that line, even if you have an overlap, let's say you have a 1/8 inch ball nose and you put in a 1/8 inch overlap, it'll probably leave a little cusp there where it didn't cut. So I would go beyond a little bit more than that. So, let's see here now. Teaspoon 20, throw it in a couple times. I was getting to it, man. I promise. Can you recommend a graphics tablet for Aspire? Basically just for sculpting. I can't because I've never used a graphics tablet. I don't have room on my desk to put one. And that's the only reason. I have heard a lot of people have had very good luck with a Wacom tablet, but I couldn't recommend which model simply because I don't know. I've never used one. But I think folks have more or less accepted that the Wacom tablet is pretty much it is pretty much the standard, and they're not super expensive. So, but that is WACOM, I believe. And from what I gather, they also like the like it for using the freehand drawing tool. That it's much nicer than trying to use the mouse. And I'll agree with that. Freehand drawing with a mouse is a pain. But let's see here. Machined in Wood says, I have a Wacom. It's awesome. Well worth it. Yeah, I've not really heard anything bad about them. I've heard people say they got one, but then didn't really use it. But that's not the fault of the tablet. So let's see here. Martin Pearson says Vectric uses Wacom tablets and will tell you which model they use, but others have commented on them on the forum. Martin, that's why you get the big money, my friend. Thank you. If you're not a member over on the Vectric support forum, by all means, get over there and register on that forum and do just a search for tablet and VCarve or Aspire or whichever. And you're going to find more information than you want to know. Believe me. So it's I've not heard anything bad about using a Wacom tablet. So Brooks Martin says, I used the Wacom Intuos Pro, but with the freehand tool has changed. Okay. Should I get one that has a screen with it? I again, you're over my head. I really can't comment that. I don't know. But okay. John Thompson says he uses a Wacom. It's an old one, but works great. I know Kurt Briggle up here seconded the Wacom. If any of you guys have a a recommendation for a model number or something like that, by all means, put it in the chat. We're all about helping one another here. So I don't know one from another personally. So if any of you guys have a recommendation of something that works with, I don't know what version of Aspire are you using there, Teaspoon 20? But if it'll work with his version, by all means, go ahead and throw out a recommendation if you have a specific model that you think would be a good one. Let's see. Okay, Chip Frappier has a good question here. Let me go get back over here and share Aspire. He says, wouldn't you need an overlap at the top to make sure it gets the 6 foot mark without leaving radius marks? No, because if you look, I have drawn, and that's why I drew these rectangles. Let me go ahead and turn on the toolpaths. I have drawn these rectangles so that they go off of the material. They go off on the edges, so I will have a clean carve here. I won't have a radius here on the outside, and I won't have a radius up above. And that's, if you look at all of the rectangles, they all go off. And up here at 6 foot, this is basically half a mark. But I don't need to add that. In fact, let me go and let's get into tiling, turn the toolpath on, and let's look at tile 2, like tile 2, the active tile. And we can see up here that it's going to go ahead and carve off of the entire thing. Okay. So I can hide that, uncheck this, and let's get back over here. Let's see here. Sargon says screen 1 is good if you are away from your computer. Okay. And Teaspoon 20 is using the 11.5. Machined in Wood recommends the Intuos Pro. Martin Pearson says just for sculpting, then a screen is probably not needed. But once you have a tablet, you will want to use it for more, and a screen will help when you're using the freehand tool to trace. Okay, there you go. Okay. A.L. Peleg says, I don't think there's an issue of not working on any model. It's just an input device. Different models have different resolution, sizes, sensitivity, extra buttons, and so on, but all work. Okay. All right. Thanks. That's good to know. Somebody up here mentioned that they were using, okay, Brooks Martin mentioned he used the Intuos Pro, but with the freehand tool, it has changed. So that's where I got that from. Check to make sure to work with your version. Let's see here. George Navarre says, when tiling, does the project have to be at least twice the distance of the cutting distance? Example, I have 24 by 24 and say my project being 30 inches long. No, it does not have to be half. It does not have to be twice the distance. For instance, let me go back into screen share. In fact, what I need to do, well, no, it's default. I can't do that. Never mind. Let's go back here and I'll go back into tiling, tile toolpaths. Now, what I can do, I have a 6 foot long project. Okay. I can set my tiles to be 12 inches tall. Okay. And leave everything else alone. Then click update tiles. And now it has made 6 tiles. Okay. So if I want to move the material 6 times, I can do it. Or let's make it uneven. Let's say I want to make a 48-inch tile. Now again, my piece is 72 inches. Okay. If I update this, I now have a 48-inch tall tile and a 24-inch tall tile. So it doesn't have to be an even number, and you can split it up however you'd like. It doesn't even have to be the same piece of material. You could set it up to where you have 3 separate pieces of material, cut tile 1 on one piece of material, tile 2 on another piece of material, tile 3 on another piece of material, then assemble them after they're cut. So no, it does not have to be, when tiling, does the project have to be at least twice the distance of the cutting distance? No, it does not have to be that at all. So, okay, let's go back over here. And hey, it worked. So let's see here. Brooks says, personally, I had a hard time with the tablet. Felt like I had to learn to write my ABCs all over. Well, yeah, I would imagine it gets a little bit different. My wife, I used to be a fan of them too, but I don't like the ones that are currently out on the market. Uh, I used to use a trackball with my thumb and not use a mouse because, again, limited space on my desktop. It just sat in one place and I could move around with it. Well, I've since got used to using a mouse again. And now I sit down at my wife's computer, and the first thing I try to do is move her trackball around. And of course, it doesn't do anything. So it is like, yeah, you have to figure out where you're going with this thing again. So, you know, I would imagine that would be the same thing for somebody else to go to the UK and drive. You're used to driving on the right side of the road, and now you have to drive on the left. Everything would just throw me. Let's see. A.L. Peleg says, can you see those cusps in the preview if there is no overlap? You know what? I don't know. Let's see. Let me go back to the full screen. And all right, we've got this. Let's go back to 36 just to make everything okay. Update tiles. We got that. All right, now let's jump over to the 3D view. And let's go into the, wow, set this to, no, don't want to use solid color. I want to use medium wood. There we go. And preview all tool. Tile 1 is the active tile. And let's get rid of the tile overlap. 0.0. Update tiles. And let's preview all toolpaths. Okay, let's go up here and let's take a look. Well, it did go by a little bit there. Okay, that's where that cusp would be. And let's switch over to tile 2. And let's preview all toolpaths. Well, what do you know? AL, it did remove the radius there where those would have met. I'm shocked. I may write home. That is something to write home about. Okay, good to know. So it did go beyond. Let's reset the preview, go into tile 1 and preview all toolpaths. The toolpath did make it go beyond just a little bit to avoid having that radius there. So it looks like that overlap is not required. Okay, I stand corrected. It's good to know. It's good to know. Thank you for asking that question. So let's see here. Let's see here. Teaspoon 20 says, I just cut a sign using tiling. If the vectors go in the minus direction from your start origin, it won't cut like you want to. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I gather. Again, I've not tried to go minus direction. So I don't know. Let's see here. Russell Faraday says, I gave up with a tablet when hand tremors set in. Mouse is much easier. No idea why. I do. With a mouse, you've got wrist support. You know, you've got wrist support. Whereas with a tablet, you've got the pencil or the stylus, rather. I'm sitting here holding my hands like you guys can see them. With a stylus, you're just basically if you can, holding a pencil. So, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, let's see here. Powell Patterson says, do you have a newbie's video I might learn to trace the profile of an image of a wooden molding to cut a plastic template of the profile from which to grind my molding knives from? I don't. but Michael Mazalik does on his YouTube channel, where he talks about cutting a parametric design. That's what you want to check out, is his example of carving a parametric design. There is a link to Michael Mazalik's YouTube channel down in the description of this video already. I will go look for that video and link to it as soon as we're done live here. I just wrote myself a note to go find that link and put it over here in the description of this video. So as soon as we're done here, give me about 5 minutes and I'll get it entered. So let's see here. Go back over here to live. Let's see here. Teaspoon says, your vectors go past in my view. Maybe I did something different. Go past the negative in what way? Do you mean the, let me hide the tiling manager in the 2D view. Boom, and let's bring this back. Do you mean here where they go off of, away from X0, Y0, or they go, beyond my X0? It's showing the toolpath cutting. So I have no reason to doubt that it would. So yeah, I have no reason to doubt that it would do it. So I would guess the offset is required or helpful for ensuring a cleaner cut. Again, it's an overlap, not an offset. It's an overlap. Okay. We got time for just one more here real quick. Retired firefighter says, off topic if you have time. I'm trying to do a dish on both sides of a two-sided job in VCarve Pro and having trouble with the dish on the bottom. These dishes are on opposite ends of the material. Setting a zero plate for the dish on the top side works, but it seems as though the dish on the bottom is referencing off of the top plane. Oh, boy. I'm going to have to... You're not going to like this, but I'm going to have to dig into that and probably put this in unfinished business, simply because I think you're right that the zero plane will only work on one side. And when you flip it over, it's going to reference the other side. I believe you're 100% correct there. I will talk to a couple of people and confirm that, or see if there's a workaround for it. And again, I'm still sharing here. I apologize. I'm going to check with a couple of people who are much better 3D modelers than I and see if there's a way of going about doing that, because I was under the impression you could have a zero plane on both sides. But now that you mention it, that might be the case. Let me get a hold of a couple of people and I'll try to have you an answer by next week, if that's okay. Because I've not had occasion to need that yet, but it is a very good question. Two-sided zero plane. I will, I'll research that and then get back to you. Okay. And we'll talk about it next week. I'll put that in the unfinished business category. So, okay. If there are no more questions that I could answer in the next, like once or twice, 1 or 2 minutes, maybe, Yeah, that's what he's saying. I've set zero plane on both sides, no dice, must be missing something. Yeah, I was under the impression that you could put a zero plane on both sides. I may be the one that's mistaken in that. So let me check with a few people and we'll make it unfinished business next week. Um, so with having said that, thank you everybody for making this a great Q&A. And I really appreciate your questions. This only works when you ask me questions. And yeah, some good ones today. Thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for your thumbs up, your comments, your shares, all of that other good stuff. Um, it, 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 you guys are the best. I mean, absolutely the best. Next week, I don't think I'm going to have time to get to the actual project, but I'm going to try my best. If not, we'll do an open Q&A, and as quick as I can, I will get this done and get the video to it posted, because I know I left a lot of questions in the air at the end of this video, and I said several times, it'll make more sense in the next video. Well, I need a next video now. Also, I'm going to be back and forth doing a bunch of things because the lean-to is coming Friday. Thank you, the Lord. And let's see. Yeah, I think that's it for everybody. Channel members, don't forget, check the community tab here on my YouTube channel for the link to tomorrow's members only live stream. We got some good stuff coming up with the molding toolpath, amongst other things. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, or you want some information on becoming a channel member, click that join button down there by the subscribe button. A little panel will pop up, a video will play, tell you all about channel membership. We have a weekly members only live stream on Monday evenings. It's a lot of fun. We got some good, very talented people that drop in and share their wisdom and knowledge. And I'm working on getting a couple of more guests to come on and share their wisdom and knowledge. But it's a good time for all. Thank you to all of my channel members. Want to say welcome aboard. And I think this was just I think this was a membership renewal, because if I'm not mistaken, Dan has been a channel member for quite some time. So thank you. Welcome aboard again, Dan. And for everyone else, we'll see you next week. Go out and make some chips. Head out to the shop. Go have some fun. Me, I'm going to go back in and help her finish tidying up because we have guests coming in from out of town. Hope you get some more shop time. And y'all take care. Have a good one. Thank you once